At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister slapped me in front of everyone over a tiny accident. My mom demanded I apologize or leave. My dad silently held the door open. The next morning, they woke up to discover I'd taken away the one thing they never thought they could lose. Hello, folks. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 37 years old, and the Thanksgiving that ended my relationship with my family started with something so small that nobody outside the room would have believed it. I was carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes. As I walked past my older sister, my elbow barely brushed against hers. A tiny splash of gravy landed on her sleeve. Before I could even say, "I'm sorry," she slapped me hard. The entire dining room went silent. She stood there glaring at me, her face bright red. "Are you blind, or just stupid?" The sting across my cheek wasn't the part that hurt. It was what happened next. Mom jumped to her feet, not to ask if I was okay, not to tell my sister to calm down. Instead, she pointed directly at me. "Olivia, say you're sorry." I stared at her. "For what?" "For upsetting your sister." I looked around the room. My brother-in-law looked down at his plate. My cousins pretended not to notice. Then Dad quietly walked to the front door. He opened it, looked at me, and said only one sentence. "If you can't keep the peace, you can leave." So I did, without saying another word. The next morning, my parents discovered that every mortgage payment, every insurance payment, every utility bill, and every monthly deposit I'd been quietly making into their account for nearly 7 years had disappeared. Looking back, the slap wasn't really the beginning. It was simply the moment I stopped pretending my family would ever choose me over my sister. My older sister, Vanessa, was 3 years older than me. Growing up, she was loud, confident, beautiful, the kind of person who believed every room belonged to her. I was different, quiet, careful, always trying not to make life harder for anyone else. Whenever Vanessa exploded in anger, Mom always had the same explanation. That's just her personality. If Vanessa screamed, I was expected to stay calm. If Vanessa insulted someone, everyone laughed it off. If I defended myself, I was accused of creating drama. Eventually, I stopped defending myself altogether. After college, I became a certified financial planner. Numbers made sense. Budgets made sense. People, not nearly as much. I worked hard, built a successful financial advisory business, bought a modest home, paid off my student loans early, never asked my parents for $1. Ironically, a few years later, they quietly began asking me for help. Dad retired earlier than expected after heart surgery. Mom worked only part-time. Their savings disappeared faster than anyone expected. One evening, Mom called. "We're a little behind. I'll help." It started with groceries, then one mortgage payment, then another, then property taxes, then homeowners insurance, then utility bills. Every month, automatic payments quietly left my checking account. Nobody outside our immediate family knew. Not my cousins, not my aunts, not even Vanessa. Mom insisted, "We don't want everyone thinking we need help." I respected that. For years, I never mentioned it. Sometimes, Mom would thank me. More often, she acted as though the money simply appeared by magic. Vanessa never contributed. She always had an excuse. "The kids are expensive. We're remodeling. We're saving for vacation." Mom always defended her. "She has more responsibilities." Apparently, mine didn't count. One afternoon, I accidentally overheard something. I had stopped by unexpectedly to drop off groceries. The front door was slightly open. Inside, Vanessa was laughing. "I don't know why Olivia keeps helping." Mom answered casually, "Because she always will." The three of them laughed. I quietly placed the grocery bags on the porch, then drove home. They never knew I'd heard. Still, I kept helping, not because they deserved it, because Dad's health wasn't good, and I couldn't imagine letting them lose their home. Then Thanksgiving arrived. Mom insisted everyone gather at her house. "It'll be wonderful." For once, I believed her. I even arrived early to help cook. Everything seemed peaceful. Until dinner, I carried a bowl of mashed potatoes toward the table. Vanessa suddenly stepped backward without looking. Our arms brushed. A spoonful of gravy landed on her sweater. I immediately said, "I'm sorry." She didn't answer. Instead, her hand flew across my face. The sound echoed through the dining room. For a second, nobody moved. Then Vanessa screamed, "Are you blind or just stupid?" My cheek burned, but what hurt more was watching every single adult remain seated. Mom stood. I felt relief. Finally, someone would tell Vanessa she'd gone too far. Instead, Mom looked at me. "You've always been so careless." I said I was sorry. "You embarrassed your sister." Dad quietly stood, walked toward the front door, opened it, then calmly said, "If you can't keep the peace, leave." I stared at him, waiting, hoping. for one sign that he understood what had just happened. Nothing. He simply held the door open. So, I picked up my purse, walked outside, and drove home. I didn't cry. Not once. Instead, I made myself a cup of tea, opened my laptop, logged into my banking accounts, mortgage assistance, canceled, insurance payments, canceled, utility account, canceled, monthly grocery transfer, canceled, property tax savings account, canceled, every automatic payment, every scheduled transfer, every recurring bill. Gone. When I finished, I closed the laptop, turned off my phone, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. I picked up my phone, 34 missed calls, 12 text messages, every single one, from my parents. My phone began ringing again. I watched Mom's name flash across the screen, then Dad's, then Mom's again. I calmly set the phone back on the table, without answering. Sometimes, the moment you stop accepting disrespect is the moment people finally discover how much you've been quietly carrying for them. As my phone lit up with missed calls the morning after Thanksgiving, I knew my parents weren't calling because they regretted what happened at dinner. They were calling because, for the first time in years, they had to face the consequences of treating my kindness like an obligation. The phone kept ringing. Mom, Dad, Mom again. By lunchtime, there were 43 missed calls. Not one voicemail began with, "Are you okay?" Instead, every message sounded almost identical. "Call us immediately. The mortgage payment didn't go through. The bank says everything was canceled. What did you do?" I stared at the screen, then set my phone back down. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing to solve someone else's emergency. Round 1 o'clock, someone pounded on my front door. I already knew who it was. "Mom, Dad, Vanessa." I opened the door. Mom pushed past me without waiting. "Olivia, what have you done?" I canceled the payments. Dad looked exhausted. "The mortgage payment bounced." "I know. The insurance company called." "I know. The electric company says our account is overdue." "I know." Mom stared at me. "You can't do this." I looked at her calmly. "I already did." Vanessa crossed her arms. "So you're throwing a tantrum over one little argument?" I laughed quietly. That seemed to surprise everyone. "This isn't about Thanksgiving. It's about 7 years." Mom frowned. "What does that mean?" Without saying another word, I walked into my office, returned carrying a thick binder. I placed it on the dining table. Dad slowly opened it. Bank statements, canceled checks, mortgage receipts, insurance payments, utility bills, property tax records, 7 years of transactions. Every payment had one thing in common. The account holder, Olivia Carter. Dad's hands began shaking. Who's paid all of this?" "Yes." Mom looked confused. "I thought those payments came from our retirement account." I shook my head. "No, they came from mine." Vanessa flipped through another section. "The roof repairs? You paid?" "Yes." "The furnace?" "Yes." "The new water heater?" "Yes." "The insurance increases?" "Yes." Page after page, the color drained from her face. Dad finally whispered, "My God." Mom slowly sat down. I never realized. I looked at her. "You never wanted to." She looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means every time I helped, you accepted it. But every time Vanessa hurt me, you expected me to apologize." Silence. Then I looked directly at Vanessa. "Do you remember what you said yesterday?" She shrugged. "You spilled gravy on me. I apologized. You slapped me." She rolled her eyes. "It wasn't that hard." Dad suddenly looked at her. "Vanessa," she shrugged again. "It was just a slap." For the first time in my life, Dad didn't defend her. Instead, he quietly asked, "You hit your sister?" Vanessa looked surprised. "So," Dad slowly stood. "So, she's been paying our bills for 7 years. And you hit her." The room fell silent. Mom started crying. "We didn't know." I answered softly. "You never asked. You only noticed me when something needed fixing." Dad closed the binder. "I failed you." I looked at him. "You failed long before yesterday. You taught Vanessa she could treat me however she wanted. You taught me that keeping the peace mattered more than respecting myself." No one argued, because no one could. A few moments later, my phone rang. It was my financial advisor. I answered. "Everything okay?" "Yes. I just wanted to confirm your investment transfer was completed." "Perfect. Congratulations again. Your retirement portfolio is fully funded." I thanked him, then hung up. Vanessa looked confused. "Investment?" I smiled politely. "I invested the money I used to spend, supporting everyone else." Dad looked at me. "You planned this?" "No. I planned my future. I simply stopped paying for yours." Mom quietly asked, "Does this mean you're abandoning us?" I shook my head. "No. I'm giving you exactly what you've been giving me. What? The chance to solve your own problems. The words seemed to hit harder than I expected. Dad lowered his head. I deserve that. Mom whispered, we don't know how. You'll learn. I did. Vanessa suddenly burst into tears. I didn't know you were helping Mom and Dad. I looked at her. You never asked either. She covered her face. I'm sorry. For hitting you. For everything. I believed she meant it. But some apologies come after too much damage. I accepted her words, not because everything was fixed, because I no longer carried the responsibility of fixing everyone else. Epilogue. Soft piano becomes lighter, carrying peace instead of exhaustion. It's been 4 years since that Thanksgiving. My parents eventually sold their oversized home and moved into a smaller place they could comfortably afford. Dad found part-time consulting work after retirement. Mom learned how to budget without depending on monthly transfers from me. Vanessa surprised everyone. She started therapy, not because anyone forced her, because she finally admitted that she'd spent her entire life expecting everyone else to manage the consequences of her anger. Today, we have a relationship, a healthier one, built on boundaries instead of guilt. As for me, the money I once spent rescuing everyone else now grows quietly in investments. I travel. I volunteer with organizations that teach financial literacy to young adults. And every Thanksgiving, I host dinner at my own home. Anyone is welcome. But there's one rule. Respect everyone at the table. No exceptions. My thoughts. Looking back, the slap wasn't the moment my family broke. It was the moment years of favoritism finally became impossible to ignore. People often believe the strongest person in the family will always keep giving, until one day, they stop. Kindness should never be confused with obligation. Generosity should never require accepting disrespect. And sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do for yourself, and even for the people around you, is to stop carrying burdens that were never yours to carry in the first place.